think you should.
Welcome to this week's Whoscussion. We are your hosts, ThatRandomGuy and Harriet Skelly.
I'm here.
He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. It's a little bit late this week, sorry guys. We've had a very busy week. I had back-to-back weddings. Harriet Skelly has some pretty cool stuff going on in his neck of the woods. So now here we are, ready to record on a public holiday. Thank God for this public holiday. I really needed it after the weekend I had. And here we are. So for part A this week, we're going to be talking about the robots of death, and we'll be following it up with the Talons of Weng-Chiang. And for part B, we'll be doing, is it called Ouroboros?
Yes.
Yes, Ouroboros is the 8th Doctor comic we'll be covering this week from Marvel Comics, and they are knocking it out of the park every single week. And we'll be finishing it up with The Little Doctors, which is a second Doctor short trip. At least I think it's called The Little Doctors. It's not just called... it is just called...
I think it is just Little Doctors.
Is this Little Doctors? Okay, well there you go.
In TARDIS Wikia.
Well, TARDIS Wikia, you know, TARDIS Wikia, trademark, TM, rights reserved, copyright, all the shindigs there. So let's jump into part A. Harriet Skelly, the robots of death, or specifically written for Harriet Skelly, it's also known as.
I guess it kind of is at this point, really, because I didn't really go into it having even like actually looking into the story, and I've never seen it before, actually. But yeah, immediately as soon as it started, I just suddenly was just in a frenzy of just trying to figure out if they'd actually stolen this from somewhere, or if this was before the things that I'm thinking of, because it is clearly taking a lot of pages out of both Dune and Isaac Asimov's I, Robot.
Well, Isaac Asimov is definitely first, I can tell you that.
Yeah, they definitely they took it out of both. They actually did. They totally took the sand references and all that what's the word, the Ogalaki, I think it is, the family related.
Hell yes, they stole that from Dune.
Yeah, they stole that straight out of Dune. The miners, all that sort of stuff. Basically, they just needed sandworms, and it would have been Dune straight up. But of course, instead, we just get Isaac Asimov's I, Robot, which is great actually. It plays out that whole idea in a much better way than a lot of his movie representations have done for a lot of his work.
Yeah,
which
like
is kind of
iRobot itself.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, those movies were good by themselves, but when you look at the source material, you realize that's really not what Isaac Asimov was trying to pull out. But this story pulls out what he was trying to do a lot better, honestly. Well, in a way, anyway. They tried a couple of things here, but basically the idea is that the artificial intelligence that shows up is something closer to what he was trying to put in there, that robots don't really have a psychology to themselves unless we start messing with them, basically. That as soon as we start giving them requirements like protecting human beings, that sort of stuff, that's when they start becoming more personified. And that's something that Isaac liked to play with. It's not necessarily part of my own philosophy, but it is an interesting idea, and this whole story sells it fantastically. And I'm really sad that it's the shorter one that we had this week.
I agree, actually.
Yeah, I would have much preferred this to be so much longer, because there's so much aspects of this that I really would have liked to learn more about, like the robot that is that's the good guy, the D86, which is
my life is not important.
Yeah, he's voiced so perfectly. Yeah, his character is fantastic. It's the real reason why I like artificial intelligence. Things like this is what sells it for me. But of course, then there's the Doctor and Leela, generally being awesome as well. Leela just totally just wrecking people all the time. It's so great that there's actually a Bohemian that's come in and just wrecking face all the time, and the Fourth Doctor like trying to say that he's not like keen on that stuff, but he's just totally letting her go for her life and just kill anyone she wants. It's great,
especially if it saves his life. Like,
yeah, especially with it's solid gold. The ending of this with him effectively making the bad guy kill himself. That's basically what the Doctor does after this point. That's how he ends a lot of people's lives after that. So he just makes them mess it up. It's great. It's solid great. Yeah. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Really, it is the Doctor inside of Dune, inside of iRobot. The book version, not the movie. Which is
for both of those source materials as well, both the book versions.
Yeah, both the book versions. Don't even get me started on the Dune movie. I mean, of course, there's not like this. There's no like futuristic, prescient stuff or anything like that. As part of the Dune franchise, it's solidly about the robots, which is something that's interesting when it comes to Doctor Who in particular. Is the way that they treat robots. Is they try not to have them, at least in Classic Who, they tried not to just like have standard robots, because it's such an over. The idea was for them was that it was an overdone trope at that point. So just think about how much it's overdone now. So
yeah, a whole 40 years after the story.
Yeah, so it's interesting how that gets played out. When looking back at this now, from now, there's just a couple of other things you want to bring up about how they thought of robots at the time, how they thought people would interact with robots, like this robophobia thing that they've brought in, the idea that eventually humans would go crazy without having another human to interact with. That interacting with only robots for a long period of time would make you go crazy, which is interesting as an idea. It would really suit the idea that humans would sort of go a bit crazy not having someone who's actually interacting with their thoughts, like respond. The way that humans react to just not having anyone at all is interesting enough. When we're alone, we start like giving inanimate objects names and things like
Wilson.
So just imagine having something that you can talk to that does respond to you, but isn't capable of forethought or isn't capable of sentient thought at all. It would probably drive you pretty crazy.
Do you reckon that comes from this phenomenon of Uncanny Valley?
Yeah, it definitely is something with that. Well, that's what they're trying to get at as well, is the idea of Uncanny Valley within the robots, is that they're not human enough. They're not human enough to make it suitable for our psychology, basically. But I guess with the kind of level of intelligence they try to sell, you'd expect their robots to be a little bit more advanced than that. But I guess that's also time constraints and how they're how we thought the future would be back in the 60s. So, there is another...
especially those hats they all wear. I love those hats.
The makeup that they're wearing as well, like they're Egyptian gods for some reason.
And it's their culture as well, so like we laugh at it, but to their people it's like really like that's the high fashion.
It's so good. That's another thing about Classic Who really is that form of world building that they do, where although you think about now, you think, oh, those costumes are outrageous, but for the people back then, having those outrageous costumes just made them that much more alien to them. And that's what it's all about, you know? You don't have to go and give them a frilly outfit to make them look alien. You just have to give them something that doesn't look like our fashion in any way. That's basically what you need to do. And a lot of them sort of struggle with that, you know? They have aliens that are just real stereotypical these days, or don't even wear clothes half the time. Yeah. So it's interesting. Or they just wear robes or some weird stuff. They just get culty about it rather than alien. It's weird. But the one thing that I really want to take away from this is how much these robots look like the angels that were on the Titanic.
Yeah, and they've even on the Titanic. I think they must have on purpose hired a voice actor that sounds like the guy who did these ones.
It does seem like the intention was that this is supposed that they're basically an extension of this story. I'm guessing that the aliens that the Doctor meets here are the same aliens that he meets later on, and that's why their coding is easily manipulated. But of course, they although they look very similar, they obviously changed the model up. Now they've got pleasure versions rather than just mining versions, which it's good. But it would have been nice if they'd explained that, because then you could actually state, hey, this is actually an expansion of the classic. You know, we're actually taking into consideration the classic Who, and then people would have actually been happy about that, except for how we felt about it when it happened.
Yeah, ding! Information. This story could have been better.
So yeah, the story is one of my favorites, honestly, out of the Fourth Doctor. Out of the whole of all of the Fourth Doctor's ones we've seen so far, anyway, because I've obviously haven't gone through it all, because there is a lot of it.
Yeah.
Fourth Doctor particularly. So
how many seasons in are we now? 2?
I think so, maybe 3.
Yeah, maybe 3. Wow, he's around for a long period of time.
Yeah, yes. But that's okay, because he's actually an enjoyable actor, which is great, considering what's basically going on behind the scenes at this point, with him basically wanting to get rid of his companions. He doesn't want them. Tom Baker does not want a companion on, and would rather just do the show by himself. Which is interesting that he's still got this fantastic dynamic going on with Leela. So clearly, it shows that Tom Baker, even though that he can be a bit of a, Tom Baker, he was still like a legitimate actor,
Yeah.
He still pulled off these things properly, instead of what some actors do, and they do a poor performance when they don't relate well to somebody. That's not what an actor does. No. They get over.
Yeah, that's the British for you, eh? Just keep calm and carry on. I think, for me, the one thing I really liked the most about the story, apart from D86, because D86 was great, was they made it look like the person who had robophobia was the villain.
Yeah.
And that was really, really cool. That's something I really enjoyed, because like for the whole time I was like, who's the bad guy? And it turned out to be that dude we only met twice.
Yeah, it was great. That random guy that we'd never even met. Even then, like we figured out who the bad guy was. They gave his name. They name dropped who it was, but it wasn't even really his name that we'd been introduced to him already. So we effectively were under the impression of we know who it is, but we don't know who it is. Sort of deal. It was very Agatha Christie, which is actually how it's based. So yeah. Yeah,
it is a whodunit, eh?
Yeah, it's even on the wiki it says the serial was based on the works of Agatha Christie. So they basically threw in a bunch of different novelists in here, and it worked out. Honestly, it worked out fantastically for them, doing that, which I would love to see in New Who, as they just like.
Well, in New Who they did an Agatha Christie story.
They did, but not like that. I'm meaning like they get some prolific authors in and get them to like work together on making a story. That would be great. Like incorporate some standard work from some people. Not like J.K. Rowling though, because that episode.
But so hang on. What if they got real J.K. Rowling and not Diet Coke version J.K. Rowling?
Yeah, that would be okay then, I guess. But just having some English, or even not even English authors, just some authors come in, sci-fi, fantasy, whoever. Get them to come in, write a story, because that's worked out very well in the past.
Yeah, because Neil Gaiman stuff's been good.
Exactly. Think about that. Neil Gaiman with the Doctor's wife. It was there's fantastic episodes that he's done. So why don't we do more of it? Why not?
Money, I think, is the reason we don't more of it. It seems to be the reason. But yeah, no, I have to agree with you. This has been a very good Tom Baker story. I like that like Leela's weaponry was pretty much ineffective in this story because the villains were robots.
Yeah.
So her Janus Thorn didn't. I love when she realizes the Janus Thorn won't work. She's like, "Wait, what the hell? Why can't I kill the Metal Man?"
Yeah.
I'm loving Leela so far.
She's a fantastic companion.
Yeah, and I love her in the audio universe as well with Big Finish. She's a great companion, and Louise Jameson still knocks it out of the park. And talking about what you were saying earlier about how Tom Baker and he didn't want companions. He was quite nasty to Louisa Jameson on set of Doctor Who, but he didn't translate into his work, which was good. But he actually apologized to her when he came back to do Big Finish, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, she didn't let it affect her work at all. She was also still continuing to be a fantastic actress. So it really speaks to both of them very well. And that their acting ability and their natures as people, really, that they can do that. So, yeah.
And I like this too, because like the Doctor's all like, "Don't kill," but secretly, "Thank you for having my back."
Yes, we need more Leela characters. Leela characters.
Leela.
We need them. We need more like psychopathic killers that the Doctor just has on retainer. Just it's solid.
But yeah, we need more muscle characters, like, because I'm sick of the. Okay, so you know how Classic Who gets a bad rap for like, you know, negative stereotypes of people?
Yep.
I mean, go back and watch a Classic Who. I haven't noticed it. I mean, have you noticed it? I mean, apart from how they handled Polly, I think.
Well, I mean, in the next story that we're about to go into, there's some really bad stereotypes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was leading into. So I found with New Who, I find that the female companions are a lot more damsel in distress than Classic Who ever was.
Yes.
But yeah, that does lead into the Talons of Wing Chiang. So Talons of Wing Chiang. Whew. This story could have been shorter.
Certainly.
2 of the episodes could have been given to Robots of Death.
Yes.
Because Robots of Death, I feel, really could have benefited from some expansion, especially in the mythos of the world that they were in. But Talons of Wing Chiang goes on 2 episodes too long. Okay, I'm of 2 minds of this. I love the story, but I love the story.
Yes.
Okay, so there
was one particularly bad casting choice.
Yeah, so they casted a white man as an Asian, as a very, very, very Chinese man, and
they had other Chinese actors.
They had Chinese actors who could all speak English perfectly as well.
And they were just playing minor characters in the background.
They were just playing minor characters in the background. They're playing henchmen. Now, the problem with the story is, unfortunately, at the time, in real history, the Chinese were talked about in this way.
Yes.
So it's historically accurate, which, I mean, I'm okay for historical accuracy. You know, I like the movie Selma. And there's a lot of, you know, negative energy towards African Americans in that. But
yes.
Why didn't they just hire one of the Chinese actors to play the main character of Ling Chiang?
That is a good question.
So it's bad, and it's so bad because this actor is putting on a really thick fake Chinese accent.
And in the worst way as well. It's not just... It sounds like a bad Chinese accent.
Yeah, like when he says... when he like purposely fumbles the R.
Yeah.
And that's not something Chinese do. That's... I mean, there are Oriental dialects that do make the R into an L. But especially like where he's supposed to be from in China... it's not something that they do, especially since R and L are very defined in Mandarin. They are 2 separate sounds that sound very different, and the Chinese are aware of that. So it's just really, really awkward to have like all these different racist stereotypes appear in his performance about just different all the different Asian stereotypes I could think of into one character, and it's so bad. And having this actor who's like been yellowface, which had been outlawed in North America by this time, which a fun fact, you can't actually get the story in Canada.
Because of the facing.
Yeah, because of the yellow facing. It's fully banned in Canada, this particular story of Doctor Who. So that's bad. But other than that, the story itself, I love the story. We hear about the Time Agency for the first time in the show's history. The Time Agency reappear with Captain Jack Harkness. It is indeed the same Time Agency as well, as established in The Writer's Tale from Russell T Davies. The characters of Jago and Lightfoot are great. They're so great. Every time they're on scene, I'm in love with the characters. The acting's so on point. The use of 19th century jargon. Like, half of the time, I don't know what in the world Jago was saying.
I've actually gotten down some of his more fantastic witty lines.
Have you actually?
Particularly when he calls certain people things. I just want to read some of these out to you. What are you, a pixelated leprechaun? Or he's about as sharp as the corner of a round table. Oh, solid gold.
I love him to pieces. And people who are followers of Big Finish will know that they've got their own series, and it's all completely canon because Big Finish is amazing. And they also did a special episode with Strax.
Yeah.
So they hung out with Strax, and that's a really good story. They hang out with the Sixth Doctor quite a lot. Now that we've got the new series rights, I'm hoping for them hanging out with the 10th Doctor, because that will be Catherine Tate hanging out with those two will be amazing. Especially having Lightfoot hanging out with Catherine Tate. I just want that so much. But those two characters are great. They completely deserve their own spin-off. And I just love those two guys are amazing. When he says, I can't remember off the top of my head how he phrased it, but when he pretty much talks about having nerves of steel, and then he says,
when it's like you couldn't, it's like you'd have better luck trying to hypnotize the Rock of Gibraltar, sort of stuff. it was solid gold. So as he's about to say that you'd have better luck hypnotizing the Rock of Gibraltar, he immediately goes into the trance. It's solid gold.
Tom Baker shines as always. Leela shines in this, and I love Lightfoot's reaction to how savage Leela is.
So
and the Doctor explains in 19th century terms how come she's so savage. And he's like, my word, the poor girl. And when he tries to protect her, and the Doctor's like, trust me, she really doesn't need your protection. He's like, but she's a lady. And so, that's great. And there are some negative things towards women that happen in this story, but again, that's historically accurate, which is an unfortunate side effect of our past.
Well, that's the thing, is that they're showing it in a way, particularly with Leela's inclusion in this, is that they're showing it in a way that says that this is how it was back then, but this is how it could be, with Leela just savagely beating on dudes all the time and just being awesome, just goes around being awesome.
There's one cringy line she says, which is do I kill the yellow one?
But
I was like, ooh, that's ooh.
She is also a trained warrior of the Sever team, so she doesn't know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Know about the yellow people.
She doesn't know about the yellow people, so that was a bit. That was a bit on the nose. So the problem with this is, it's just a bit on the nose. For me, this is one of the few times I would suggest just read the novelization.
Yeah, especially if you're in Canada, because you can't actually get this.
Yeah, if you're in Canada, just pick up the novelization, read the novelization. The novelization's good, and it fleshes out some of the characters as well. There is one moment, though, with the actor that's yellow facing that I absolutely loved, and it's a character piece, and it's just before he dies. And it's when unfortunately, he's high on opium at the time, so that kind of ruins the scene a little bit. But he talks about the reason that he gave in to this falsehood that this man was a god, this Wing Chiang, was because he, a person of poor birth, would have performed in front of Queen Victoria. And I love that because it's just this one single encapsulated moment that explodes this wealth of of wanting to know more about this man as he passes on. I think that was handled very well, but could have been handled way better if it was actually a Chinese person playing him.
Yeah, if he was actually a Chinese person. Yeah,
especially since all of the extras are Chinese, except for that guy that's yellow-faced as well. One of the stunt doubles is yellow-faced. Ooh, that was bad. And he's got like these really thick eyebrows. Wow.
Yeah. But that's basically it, really. Is that they had these people around to do this, but they didn't use it.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Doesn't make any sense.
They can all speak English. I'm just like, why don't you just hire them? But other than
and
that,
they were clearly actors. Like, they were good actors too. Like they did some selling. So you know. They did some better death scenes than I've seen in my time.
Dude, especially Hartnell era death scenes. 60s is where the death scenes are. Like when people get shot, they throw themselves across the room. That's the best. It's like I was watching episode 4 of Star Wars with the wife the other day, and she was just like, "Watch that man. Go back and watch that man. He threw himself across the room." I was like, "Don't ruin this movie for me, please." But yes, so old school dying. Harry Skelly says it was handled really well in the story, and I don't understand why they didn't just hire this, because it's like it's almost Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany's bad. In fact, sometimes it's worse.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's unfortunately that's a negative part of our history that we unfortunately can't delete. Unless we get, the modern era Cyberman to help us out. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
No, afraid not. I mean, Croton could help us out.
Oh, yeah, actually, Croton probably has seen a couple of universes where this never happened, but...
Fair enough.
But there we go. It's... Again, I could only suggest a novelization, whereas with Robots of Death, I could suggest it in any form. I mean, Robots of Death actually got a canon spin-off as well, which was an audio form called Caldor City, and went for about 4 seasons, I believe. And it's interesting because Caldor City is mentioned once in the whole of Robots of Death.
Yeah.
And it gets its own spin-off that's 100% canon. It's great. I love it. But that's Doctor Who for you, I guess. With that, we will head into part B, and we'll see you all there.
Catch you on the flip side.